Hi friends. So this week we are talking about the first settlement of Jamestown. King James, right? He had gotten the Virginia Company to get 3 ships and he sent them looking for new land and looking for gold. Well, after 4 months, they landed on what we now know as Jamestown and they started building their settlement. Now, we talked about in the settlement how there were enemies around, so they built the fort, and we said that they built the fort in a triangle shape, and that the houses were in this fort, and the church was in the fort, the store was in the fort, and a meeting place was in the fort. And then it was protected by 3 cannons in each corner, and then men watching to make sure no invaders came. Jamestown was a good settlement because it was near the water, but they had some problems. Uh, it was getting cold, they were out of food, and people were getting sick. So, yesterday we talked about John Smith and we watched a video about him, and you were asked to write a journal entry. So I just kind of want to finish up with John Smith, and then we will talk about or next week we will talk about Pocahontas and John Smith, and also the relationship between the Jamestown settlement and the Indians, and what kind of relationship they built, and what the Indians showed these new settlers. All right, so let's. I'm gonna kind of go over this John Smith again. I'm going to take a picture of this and send this to you so you can have it to refer to answer these questions if you need to, but we're going to go over these questions right now as well. So if you want to come around, you can. All right. So on this first question, it said, what did John's father do for a living? Do you remember? Well, if we look in our first paragraph here, it says John Smith was born in England and his father was a farmer. So John's father was a farmer, and we can write with a capital letter H-E. He was a farmer. All right. So we have our sentence starting with a capital letter. We have it ending with a period because it's just a general statement. There's no excitement or question to it. All right, and you should be able to spell all of these words. You've gotten all of the he was a, you have. And then look, here's our bossy R, farmer, and another bossy R. All right, let's go to question number 2. What did John Smith do after he escaped from being a slave? So let's read on and find out. John worked on a ship as a soldier. During this time, he learned a lot. He had some adventures, but was captured and sold into slavery. He eventually escaped, and he returned to England in 1604. So after he escaped from being a slave, he returned to England. So again, we're going to start our sentence to make it a full, proper sentence with the word he, right? Capital H starting our sentence. He returned, or you could put went back to England. Okay. And again, we end with a period. All right, so what was Smith's rule for Jamestown settlers who did not want to work? Do you remember? I think it was, if you don't work, you don't eat. Let's see if we can find that in our article here. So I'm going to start here. John Smith became a leader of the new colony in 1608. John Smith became the president of the colony of Jamestown. Smith was tough but fair. His rules for the settlers were, look, if you don't work, you don't eat. So that's what we're going to write right here. If you don't work, You don't eat. Okay, and look, if you don't work, there's a pause in here, so I'm going to put a comma. You don't eat with a period. All right, now, what happened when John Smith went to meet with the Indian chief Powhatan? Do you remember? Well, let's read this and find out. As leader of Jamestown Colony, John Smith wanted to try to make peace with the Native Americans. He went to meet with the Indian chief Powhatan, but he was captured. So when he went to meet with him, they captured him. So we can write that, right? You should know how to write they, T-H-E-Y, they, and then captured. Remember to use your phonetic spelling too. If you don't spell it exactly right, that's fine. What sounds do you hear? They captured him. Okay. And the last question was, what Native American saved John's life? Do you remember? And this is who we're going to talk about next week. It was Pocahontas, right? Pocahontas, P-O-C-A-H-O-N-T-A-S. Pocahontas saved his life. Look, and you can find these words right in the sentence, right? Saved is there, life is there, and you should know how to spell his. All right, my friends, I will have the sheet for your parents in case they want to refer back to it, in case you didn't get all of the answers. And that is it. You guys have a great weekend, and on Monday we'll talk about Pocahontas.